This is Central Global News, bringing you up to date with news stories from across the globe in a few minutes summary. The EU and the US have demanded the release of Alexei Navalny from the detention in Russia. The opposition politician and outspoken critic of President Vladimir Putin and his party was detained by police on Sunday, shortly after his flight from Germany landed in Moscow. Mr. Navalny returned to the country after his 5-month-long recovery from a nerve agent attack last August, which almost killed him. He blamed the attack on Russian authorities, who denied having any part in it. The politician decided to return to Russia, even though he has been warned that he would be arrested there for violating the terms of his suspended sentence for embezzlement. His flight ended up being diverted from Vnukovo airport, where thousands of his supporters gathered for his return due to technical reasons, according to the pilot. Mr. Navalny was detained a few minutes after landing. "I know that I am right. I fear nothing," he said, and asked the border guards if they had been waiting long for him. Since the arrest, several European governments and US President-elect Joe Biden's incoming national security advisor have demanded Navalny's release, but the Russian foreign minister dismissed this international condemnation. In the US, small groups of protesters gathered outside state houses on Sunday in several states, including Texas, Oregon, Michigan, and Ohio. Some of the protesters were armed, but there are no reports of violence. After the recent riots at the Capitol in Washington, the city is preparing for the inauguration of Joe Biden on Wednesday, while on lockdown for the pandemic and security reasons. Thousands of National Guard troops have been moved to Washington, D.C. in order to avoid violent attacks from the supporters of Donald Trump. Meanwhile, President-elect Joe Biden has outlined his plans for his first few days in office, which will include a series of executive orders. These focus on issues like immigration and handling the pandemic, and Mr. Biden is also planning to return the U.S. to the Paris Climate Accords and the Iran nuclear deal. In his last days of being president, Donald Trump is expected to issue around 100 presidential pardons, which is an unusually high amount. Allegedly, his list of pardons does not include the president himself. Australia is unlikely to fully open its borders this year, says Department of Health Secretary Brendan Murphy. Due to the escalation of COVID in other countries, substantial border restrictions can be expected for the rest of the year, meaning quarantine requirements for travelers, even when the majority of the population will be already vaccinated. Right now, only Australian citizens and permanent residents are allowed to enter the country, and they have to complete a 14-day quarantine at their own expense. The country have been praised by experts for their fast response and strict quarantine rules against the spread of COVID. The country's vaccination program is planned to begin only in late February in order to give more time for regulatory approvals. That's it for this week. Thank you for listening.